Welcome back, everybody. Episode 30. 3-0. Big Steph Curry number over here. Basketball starting in 2 weeks, but you know how it is. Another week. Another week of football we cover. We cover week 5 and part of week 6 as we kind of preview what we saw, the games that just happened by, and then it's almost a third of the season complete. After week 6, it'll be interesting to see where a lot of teams stand. But before that, Corsian, how are you doing and how are you feeling?
Uh, Doing good. Just school stuff, I guess. Been exercising a lot lately, so that's fun too, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Gotta step up and be the next Broncos wide receiver because all of them kind of suck right now.
Yeah, just when I got hyped on Mims, I was like, oh, well, okay, he had the fumble, huh? And then, um, but the Bears got to win. I am ecstatic. It almost seems like they're 5-0. So the way I am feeling about them, they should be 2-3, but we're not going to get into that with their defense blowing the game against the Broncos. But they did it against the Commanders. Super happy about that. We'll talk about them in a minute. But yeah, you're on the wrong end of Sean Payton being dumb, calling out opposing coaches before they even play each other, and he earned the fun of it. Like, Zach Wilson looked great. Brees Hall looked phenomenal. He was almost on my list of give me 5 players I wanted you to talk about. But yeah, I mean, not too much to say. Broncos offense continues to look good, but the defense just makes horrendous blunders each and every week, and I just don't know where to begin with that. But I want to get your takes on it first because you watched the game. I didn't. What did you take away from it?
Yeah. I think a lot of turnovers with the Broncos really if negatively affected them. Like like opening drive of the game, Jets are forced into a 3-and-out, and they punt the ball, and then on the punt return or whatever, the ball is fumbled. Jets recover, and then they force another 3-and-out, but it leads to a field goal, a field goal score. So then the game already starts out. Broncos defense actually plays good for once, and they still let up points just because special teams ends up not doing their job. And then last play of last play of the Broncos offense. There's the Russell Wilson fumble. I don't know, he's gotta hold on to the ball better there, obviously, and it's turnovers like that end up costing the Broncos some games. So that's what it is. I think overall, in a way, it sucks losing to Hackett. Hackett. We saw in the beginning his offense kind of sucked, but overall, I think the Broncos did play well. If you minus and take away all the turnovers that the Broncos ended up having, uh, I mean, it was a winnable game. They were in a position to win the game with that Zach Wilson interception late
It
in
was a
that second
3-point
half as
game.
well.
Yeah, they were
It
right in.
was. And then, just turnovers by the Broncos offense ended up costing them. And so this game was actually pretty solid by the defense for once. It's just, again, it's how much can Sean Payton do here at this stage too, where it's he literally, the offensive play calling was fine. Defense was actually rolling somewhat. And then what ends up costing the game is turnovers.
Yeah, Brees went on a couple of runs, but
Oh,
compared to
yeah.
what we've seen in the history of the Broncos defense this season, step up, step up. There's still some blunders being made, but Jaleel looked really nice.
Hmm.
I paid attention to that first drive, and he looked really nice when they called screens for him, put
Hmm.
him out in space. He is electric, and I think eventual thunder and lightning between Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, if they can find a balance there, they got something in that running game.
Hmm.
Even if P Ryan is the placeholder for Javonte Williams right now, they still got some variety in the running game they can lean upon. But yeah, Zach Wilson proved last week's not a fluke. Yeah, he's gonna have some growing pains. That's the nature of being thrust into the role of the number 2 pick, where you're forced to start every time and you're not perfect when you first start out, and you make almost historically bad plays, throughout your tenure as a starter. take a little break, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into start to roll again. There's going to be growing pains with Zach Wilson. And the Jets defense is phenomenal. So, like, on the Broncos end, like, there's only so much you can do offensively. Like special teams is one important facet of the game. You hate to lose on that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking forward to see in the Broncos next couple of weeks?
Trades.
Trades. Are you off like Sutton and Judy already, or like what do you look to upgrade?
I don't know. I just think that like with the Broncos, it seems like I don't know. At least this game, it didn't seem like there was a lot of effort, I guess, from the Broncos receivers, especially in that second half, in terms of like trying to get open. And I'm like, I mean, it almost doesn't feel like they really want to be playing here. I mean, looking at how the teams performed, obviously, I feel like I'd be bummed out too. But Broncos have literally the most expensive receiver room in the league. I know Tim Patrick's out, but you have the most expensive receiver room in the league, and to have a guy that's playing okay at best is kind of obviously a letdown. And so it's like if these guys don't want to be here, they don't. They should be traded, I think. And obviously, they're like none of the receivers really have that winning culture like within them as well, just because I don't like hardly anybody that was drafted by the Broncos has ever seen a winning record. At least that's currently on the roster. And so, just trades, I think, is what I expect that to happen. I don't know if they're gonna hunker down and hopefully they have like a late and like them imagining themselves having a late season run or anything. But I think it'd be smart to trade, especially. I mean, like we think about Jerry Jeudy peak value in the offseason where people were thinking that he's worth a first round pick, but now people are like, oh, maybe at best Broncos could get a third round pick, more likely like a fifth round pick with some of his contract eaten up.
Yeah. As much as I was high on Sutton a year ago, like I think he's one of those players where he kind of like plays up to his competition and like down to his competition and doesn't give you like that consistent effort you're looking forward to. So like he has a lot of opportunities, he gets a lot of opportunities, but he doesn't maximize the efficiency of them. So like he's one guy I think can get a return because he does have some use in the league where like in a Mike Evans role and like beyond that. I think he could definitely thrive there. Not saying he is Mike Evans. Mike Evans is a lot more consistent than he is. But there should be a home for him with Cortland Sutton. And with Jerry Jeudy too, like he's got a lot better with like catching the ball with his fingertips. I think that was the one part in this game because like his route release and like separation is like elite tier, but his hand catching is like low average. So like you were looking for him to marry that. And I think he's grown in some areas. So like I'm debating like in my head whether it's reasonable to keep him or like move him. But like you mentioned, you got to have that balance of like compensation values. So totally hear you on that. As for the Jets, it's kind of like people just expected them to like they didn't have any expectations for the Jets. And now it's just kind of like, ooh, let's see how well Zach Wilson does. Like we got nothing to lose. We might mess around and make the playoffs. So who knows? Still a lot of unwritten story about the Jets to be written. All right. Bears and Commanders finally get a win. We're enough of the Caleb Williams talk. We still got Justin Fields. I'm probably the one minority that thinks like we shouldn't tank for Caleb Williams and build around what we have. And thank goodness that DJ Moore is a Bear. I'll take that. He went completely bonkers. Over 200 yards, 9 receptions, 3 touchdowns. He could have had a fourth. I think the only lone spot which I wish there was improvement was obviously the defense, not giving up as many points as they did in the second half because it kind of gave me the Broncos worries. And then like Darnell Mooney, like 4 targets, 0 receptions, a lot of close but no cigar type plays. That was not good to see, but it's one of those where like if 1 or 2 of them break, like Darnell Mooney has a touchdown and he has like a 30-yard reception. If all of them break, like it's suddenly like the floodgates open. So good to see them using Komet a lot. The one thing that worries me is the running back room right now. So if you're like deciding between Roshan Johnson and Deontay Foreman this week, I'd say roll with Deontay Foreman just because Roshan Johnson's still in concussion protocol. And there's a chance they could sit him out and like have another guy come in, like not Travis Homer. I think they signed Darrington Evans this week. So it'll probably be Deontay Foreman, Darrington Evans, and Kari Blasingame. Foreman's good. The other two are unproven. So that's the kind of expectations I have. But if you're talking about rest of the season, give me Roshan Johnson. I think he's going to come out firing. He's a guy you need to have on your rosters if you don't for fantasy football, or just keep a note on. Khalil Herbert looks like he's going to be out for at least like 4 games. So that's something to note there.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm Bears finally have a win now with within the time duration that Elon Musk has owned Twitter, now X, which that was a meme for a while, but Bears finally have proven themselves. Yeah. Yeah, and I know like the Commanders technically have a decent defense, but like I think time will tell, at least with this defense, and how well like they'll actually rank by the end of the season. Because remember, I looked at like some of the scores, I guess, with the Commanders, and I know they faced a handful of like strong offensive teams as well, but over the past 4 weeks, they've let up 30 or more points in each one of their games, and so I think we'll see how Commanders fare throughout the rest of the season, and then hopefully, like Bears can keep up this, I guess, offensive momentum that they've had, and hopefully it's not a case of just them facing 2 weaker defenses in 2 weeks in a row, but they can kind of carry this momentum throughout the rest of the season.
I don't think so. I don't think so. A lot of people think that. I wouldn't buy into that hype. Not because I'm a homer, but it's because if you look at what they're doing schematically, it's like miles different where it actually complements what Justin Fields does. Could Justin Fields get better in areas? Yeah, I thought he still had some hesitation in his hitches that like played him versus the Packers, and like doesn't throw with anticipation like on some throws that he should, like stop routes to DJ Moore. He'd hang around and give the defender a chance to bite on it a little bit. He made up for it with his ball placement, but you'd like to see him get better in those areas. And the offensive line looked really, really good when Tevin Jenkins came back. And I think Tevin Jenkins is in for a huge season if like what I saw rings true for the rest of the season. He looked phenomenal. Cody Whitehair like finally looks like himself. But that's a duly noted point about the Commanders. I think they're working transition with their secondary, and their linebackers are not as good once Cole Holcomb left in free agency. So like they're really leaning on their like defensive line to get home within 2 seconds. And in theory, that's a good sound launch to have. You want to win with your pass rush. It forces bad decisions, rush those. But you don't have the secondary to back them up. You can just get stop routes like the Bears are just getting at them all night, and like deception. Like you can easily like get the defensive lineman out of their gaps, double teams, and it doesn't matter like how good their front four is if their back line cannot hold up for more than 2 seconds. So that was a duly noted point. But I want to talk about their offense a little bit because they look good. Sam Howell like had a bounce back game. He looked really, really nice from how he ended up with Philly. He started slow, but like the comeback was good. Like he had a great comeback, and I think we undersold Brian Robinson a little bit going into the season. He wasn't talked about enough, and I think he should be. We talked about it earlier in our season previews, but he's having a phenomenal season. That's another backfield I would kind of invest in too. Not as heavily as maybe the Dolphins per se, but Antonio Gibson, if he's still like available, he's worth the pickup. Eric Bieniemy knows how to use his backs really well. The receivers and tight ends, like if you're looking out for a tight end, Logan Thomas looks like he's rounding into form. And he's worth an investment. As far as like any of the receivers, I know Corshad's a huge fan of Jahan Dotson this season. I think he'll get his fair share when all is said and done. It's just like an inexperienced quarterback going into the season, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. So don't lose hope in the Commanders' offense. They actually got something special this season. All right. Did you have any thoughts on this game? Anything you're missing? Any outlooks you have for these teams for next week?
Yeah. And nothing much to what you added. Obviously, this is kind of like a one-off game for like each players have their highs and lows, but Brian Robinson actually did have a pretty poor game against the Bears. So hopefully, he rebounds against that. He had 6 carries for 10 yards, averaging 1.7 a carry, which obviously there's multiple factors that lead into that, but obviously you want to see that a little bit higher or a lot bit higher. And but I do think that he
I think
can
a lot
bounce
of
back.
that has to do with the Bears' run defense. I think it was more like the Bears' run defense finally stood up. But even like watching him, like as bad as his stats were, like he knew like where to run and the leverages, like on interior zones. So like as long as he's not getting continually stuffed, I'm not too worried about the statistical output. Overall this season, I think it's a better argument to be made. He has played better than people expect. But yeah, that's not a good look on me for saying that after this week with the stats. So that's for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, it just kind of goes to like I think a big thing that hurt the Commanders this game was just the fact that because his yards per carry and stuffing was so low that like they really couldn't develop a run game at all. Like Sam Howell was the leading rusher against the Bears this week. With Brian Robinson, the only other player getting rushing touches for that Commanders offense, which I think, I mean, you have like Howell who's throwing 51 times plus 4 carries, so it's like 55 times the ball was basically in his hands to make a play. And then there was 6 times basically the entire game where it wasn't on Sam Howell. And I think regardless of how like his potential is right now, obviously he's still like a young quarterback without that much experience. And I think it's just difficult to, try to keep your team in a game when 99% of your offense is being run through your quarterback and nobody else.
Yeah, and I think it was a product of the score in that situation too. It's like I feel like Eric Bieniemy will figure it out, like when that run balance like shifts when the score does, because I think it just got way too disimbalanced, which just even hurt them more because they're like basically running 2-minute offense once the deficit got huge. So I don't think Brian Robinson is going to get 6 attempts anymore. I think they're going to use him a lot more. In the future cases to really establish that offensive line, because I really played them against the Bears. It almost seemed like once the Bears like pounced, like they weren't letting go at all. But obviously excited for the Bears' outlooks. It seemed like they finally like turned a corner a little bit. So perfect opportunity for them to go up against the Vikings and make a statement win at home. We'll see what happens. And then for the Commanders, little bit of a difficult outlook after like nearly taking down the Eagles and then losing this one like within the span of 4 days. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back in week 6. All righty. It is time for our weekly segment, Give Me 5. So Corset and I have kept up 5 players we saw over the course of week 5. We wanted to get each other's options about, like opinions about as well. And then you guys to hear what we think about them, whether they did well or whether there's room for improvement. So I think this week was like mostly positive when we were looking at these teams, and a lot of them are guys like we had high expectations for going into the season, but had a couple slow starts, but I've done well since. My first one is quarterback for the 49ers, Mr. Relevant, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, obviously he's playing really well. I think we talked about him a little bit like a couple of weeks ago too. I think just like how amazing I guess he is, and he definitely gets a lot of help from the superstar playmakers that he has around him. But in the end of the day, he is still playing really good football. Especially against the Cowboys, with the Cowboys defense at least smothering the past couple offenses they played against, and to see Brock Purdy kind of just shine through all of that was really nice to see. And so I have the other quarterback in that game, Dak Prescott.
I would still say patient with him. I think it was just a case where San Francisco was just firing on all cylinders that game. Up to that point, Dak had been playing really well. He only had 1 interception this entire season, so like he was definitely turning a corner. Could you say that's inferior competition? Yeah, but I don't think he had that much help to begin with. Like, and that's saying a lot considering the talent he has. But I just think in one of those cases, like this is the difference between like having a coach like Mike McCarthy and having a coach like Kyle Shanahan that's like dialing up plays for every single person to succeed. Yeah, it's pretty easy to say like, oh, we're gonna run the ball a lot more, but like it didn't seem like things were building off of each other for Dallas. It seemed like they have a couple good plays and then like a bad play, and then those bad plays would like envelope into other stuff. And the defense didn't show up as well. They're missing Trayvon Diggs, obviously. Had a couple of injuries. Like you hope Lane Vander Esch is okay as well. But just like a tough breaks. I think it was just like the whole Cowboys team just had like one that let them get away and turned into their worst nightmare. It's like the 49ers are the kryptonite of the Cowboys right now. They just got to get over it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that was a long one. DJ Moore.
I think this is the DJ Moore, more or less that Chicago fans were expecting when he first was acquired to for the team. And I think that yeah, I mean, this is obviously, this is the type of player that they can have week in and week out. Obviously, I don't envision the 200 yards a game, stretch to happen, but I do think that,
Man, what are you saying? It could happen every week, man.
I mean, it could, but I still think that he's a player capable of, being 100-yard kind of like expectation guy for this team, especially if all the Bears continue to, air the ball out efficiently as well, like get him the ball in space. So because I mean, DJ Moore's really just great at those catches in traffic and then yards after the catch, which is a pretty nice combo of a receiver, but. We don't always get to see it utilized. I think play calling hurt him earlier in the season, so hopefully it gets continues to do well for him. But next guy on my list is Sam Laporta.
Sam Laporta looked amazing. Yeah, he only had like 2 or 3 receptions, but like the way the Lions are trying to scheme things open for him and the way he's winning like over routes and dig routes is just like ecstatic. I'm super excited for this kid. Bright future. He looks like he could be one of the top 5 best tight ends in the league already. That's how good I think he is.
Mm-hmm.
All right, enough about Sam Laporta. I raved about him too much on this podcast. I've also raved about Jamar Chase. What do you think of his performance against Arizona?
Well, I mean, like obviously, like fantasy stats for the past couple of weeks haven't looked great for him, but like when you're watching him on the field, you really don't see like any step back in terms of his like route running ability and just being a wide receiver straight up. And so obviously we see a game here where uh they do go against a bit of a weaker opponent. It was against the Cardinals, I think. And
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, regardless, it was good to see that the Bengals still. I mean, they have playmakers on the team, and then I think it really does center around, I guess, how Joe Burrow plays the rest of the year. I know he was dealing with this little calf injury, and so we'll see if that lingers or if that uh, gets healthy. Because I think I wouldn't be surprised to see a trend of against maybe good pass rush teams that the Bengals might struggle a bit more just because if Joe Burrow's having limited mobility, then he can't really extend plays, and he may not be able to get Jamar Chase the ball. But I do think that overall he'll still put up a pretty decent season. And obviously we see that he can put up phenomenal numbers here too. Next guy on my list though is Josh Downs, another receiver.
Josh Downs looks absolutely phenomenal. I think he could eventually take up the number 1 role in Indy. Not saying a lot because Michael Pittman is having a good season. But I just look at his stats, like 6 catches, 97 yards rather. All of his targets were caught. NFL Rookie of the Week. Looks amazing. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it. But it's just a shame that AAR is hurt, so you don't really see how that connection develops. But at least for the next 6 to 8 games. But really excited about his future. I think he can have better upside than Jamison Crowder. And I was not as high as him as other receivers are. I know you were when we were talking about like wide receivers in the draft, but I'm sure you're happy to see him succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was an elite route runner in college, and um, I mean, that's obviously a great thing to have, regardless of everything. Just, I mean, and then he has at least average hands. I mean, I haven't seen him make any crazy catches per se, but I mean, we see like Jerry Judy being another elite route runner in college. He's still an elite route runner here, but obviously the hands issues plus injuries kind of derailed, I guess, what his potential could have been. Or as we're seeing Josh Downs here, who is shown that he has been an elite route runner. He still is an elite route runner, and when the ball gets to him, he's catching it. And at least so far, we haven't seen any injuries, which is obviously great for him. But yeah, I'm excited to see, I guess, how his career trends.
Awesome. Great. You gave me Josh Downs. My
Mm-hmm.
number 4 guy is someone who may not have appeared on the stat sheet a lot, but definitely was impactful. I'll leave it to you to describe him. Max Crosby.
Yeah, Max Crosby. I mean, like, I think we can see like all season that he has been an elite pass rusher. He's a game wrecker. Um, And like you said, I mean, I think on the stat sheet he only had 1 sack, and even 1 sack a game. If you do that every week, that's you end the season with 17 sacks. And so, I mean, to that extent, that's still perfectly fine from him. And I think that, um, I mean, I mean, I don't know, he played good football. Obviously, him plus just the rest of the defense kind of threw Jordan Love off his game, which led to a lot of interceptions and ended up winning the game against the Packers there. But yeah, I wasn't able to watch the game fully, and so these are just kind of tidbits that I saw, at least from a little bit of the highlights and a little bit of like peeking in and out of the game there. But overall, yeah, he looks really good. I hate that he's on the Raiders, but uh, next up on my list, I have another receiver, Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel. Pretty interesting to look at him. Like he's definitely worth the pickup in this offense. I talked about like Jahan Dodson earlier, but I think Howell does a great job of spinning the ball around, which is going to be like a benefit for Curtis Samuel. Um, I think he's a guy like he's more of like he's schemed open, but I think he is capable like any week of scoring a touchdown, obviously, and then like having a bunch of yards randomly, like at least like 7. Like he can go for like 7 catches, 70 yards, like any Sunday. So definitely a good player. I don't think he's a great player, but I think this is a good offense and a good fit for him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Last on my list, one of the best middle linebackers in the game, Fred Warner.
Yeah, Fred Warner. He had a really good game against the Cowboys. Few of the highlights that I saw from him, he looks like a Madden user middle linebacker, like just the way he's able to make plays. Where remember I saw this one highlight where I mean he's obviously an off-ball linebacker, so he drops off at coverage or whatever, and then like he kind of follows the quarterback and covers the route underneath as Dak Prescott rolls out to the left, and then as Dak continues going down the field, then he kind of collapses down and gets the sack on him. And so he's literally starts out in coverage, just a basic zone. Then he helps shadow a guy that is the side Dak Prescott's rolling out to, followed by the sack. Which I'm like what more can you ask from a linebacker to do? There's a reason why he's considered like the best, if not or one of the best, if not the best.
Did you see his interception from Sunday night?
I did not see that, no, but
it was crazy. It was crazy. It was like a tip ball, but like just his athletic speed to get to that was crazy.
Yeah, he's an insane football player. And I mean, like I think we said in our rankings a while ago that he really is that guy that holds that and makes that San Francisco defense so elite. I think without him, they still have good playmakers. They'll still be a top 16 defense in the league, but I think with him there specifically, it allows this defense to be a top 5 unit at worst, which is pretty nice to have this, considering the Broncos have the worst defense, like potentially all time. But anyways, my next guy for you is Darren Waller.
Darren Waller. I'm not excited about the Giants' offense. I will say that. I think they might have one of the worst offenses in the league, and it's partially not like Dable's fault. I think Saquon got hurt. Like Daniel Jones wasn't playing well, and then he got hurt as well. But if I look at his routes run, it's like among the lead, like the team lead. Like he has 175 up to this point, which is really good to see. His red zone target percentage is like 22. His 2-minute adjusted target percentage is 20, and then he has 33 targets up to this point. So he's getting the targets, and his average depth of targets is like literally 8 yards. So his average depth of 8 yards is almost 9, really. I think they're using him well as well. Like his slot target percentage is 46.5%. So he's being used like a wide receiver and a wide receiver one if you look at how often he's getting targeted.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those cases where it's like, can he do it consistently because of the system he's in? It's just kind of like a wait-and-see approach. I love his talent. I just don't love the QB play around him. It's like it's very much like Kyle Pitts and Drake London, but Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of feel about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Darren Waller is like ranked around 5th in receiving yards for tight ends in the league right now, which looking at this Giants offense, I would never have really guessed that, but I mean,
Me neither.
He has some slow weeks, but yeah, he is playing really good football. And I think Sam Laporta actually has the league lead with tight end receiving yards plus the 3 touchdowns, which is nice for him. Which is pretty cool to see. He's kind of a more conventional tight end as well. Because I feel like last time we saw like this explosive tight end number, kind of as a rookie, was Kyle Pitts, who fortunately has kind of been sucking as of late. But I think he had a decent game last week actually. But anyways, yeah, I mean, Laporta's looking really, really good. Kind of exciting to see a couple of young guys shine, and then Jonnu Smith instead of Kyle Pitts is playing pretty good football too. But
yeah, and I'll put one more tight end in there while we're talking about it. I think if there's like a guy who I didn't anticipate would not be used right and doesn't have the stats for it, it would be Dalton Kincaid. I think the Bills' offense is still trying to figure itself out, and I think the one benefit you could see from them losing as many defensive players as they did in 1 week, which is wild. We'll talk about it in the next topic, but I think it's going to lead to them like trying to compensate in the air over the next couple of weeks. So I would look for him, and I would not give up on him if he's still on your roster. I would not drop him because he has the talent that Laporta does. He just hasn't been used like it. So don't give up on the Bills, and don't give up on Dalton Kincaid. It was kind of crazy, like looking at this game between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Bills, because the Bills are just fresh off like knocking down the NFL's most wanted team in the AFC, undefeated Miami Dolphins at the time. And it was a pouncing. They pounced. We talked about it last week. It was like a 28-point win, 4-touchdown win.
Yeah.
And then they go into London and they lose to Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. What were your takeaways from this?
Maybe it wasn't as high scoring as everybody had anticipated the game to be, but I mean, overall, both teams did decently well. Obviously, playing in London is a bit difficult, especially just with the time zone change and everything like that as well. But at the start of the season, I think we both saw that the Jaguars and the Bills were going to be some of the better teams in the AFC. And while maybe the Jaguars started out a bit slow, I do think that they still have plenty of talent on that team. Like I think Travis Etienne is like a top, at least right now, he's like top 5 in rush yards on the season, I think. And you
had a monster game.
Yeah, he had a monster game specifically against the Bills too. But I think both teams have playmakers making crazy plays. I know there's that one, I think the one Josh Allen interception that it was practically just ripped out of Stephon Diggs' hands, I think, which obviously sucks.
Oh, by Darius Williams. Yeah, I remember that play. That was a wild play. That was a great play by him.
And so I'm not necessarily like down on the Bills for losing this game, and I think if all games to lose isn't like the worst game to be losing for them.
Yeah, it was a tough break. They had a lot of like almost plays that didn't go their way. But I look at their deep. They lost a lot of people on their defense. It's just like a tough week for them. Um, like Milano's one of their best players, and like he might be out for the whole year, which is just sad to see. But even with Milano and even with all their players healthy, they've always had a problem stopping the outside zone play. And I was tuning into a couple of like NFL outlets that I follow, and the one weakness the Bills do have is stopping outside zone, but the Jaguars don't run it enough. They don't. They never run it like up to this point, like outside zone, entirely different. And I think whenever it was like late in the fourth quarter and the Jaguars went to outside zone, Bills just had no answer. And I think it's just great coaching by Doug Peterson. Like he's gonna be like he's gonna adjust to the situations that it demands, and hence why like I was saying this on this podcast. Like I would not write out Christian Kirk as a significant producer of this offense because some weeks he will outproduce Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley had a good game this week, but like the previous week, he only got 2 targets. And sometimes that will happen against the better teams in the AFC. They're looking to shut him down, and they're going to put a safety over the top and double him. So I would not write off like Kirk, Evan Ingram. You hope Zay Jones gets healthy, but when he's healthy, he's a red zone threat. We saw it on the first touchdown of the game. But other than that, it's the Bills are like they're soul searching right now to try and figure out the pieces and like how to get their offense to be more consistent and actually make those plays. Jaguars defense look good though. I think they're a little bit underrated, like compared to most of the teams. Like it's kind of like how we viewed the Chiefs defense last year. They're one team I would look at to be a pretty good defense. All right. Guess you don't have any other thoughts on this one. Let's talk to Texans and the Falcons here. I don't know about you, but I was really hyped to see how CJ Stroud would play. I did not anticipate that Desmond Ridder would be really, really good in this game. I think that's karma for me saying he looked horrible last week. But he actually targeted Kyle Pitts. We have a Kyle Pitts sighting.
Yeah. Yeah, I still don't like Desmond Ridder. Like, sure, here I'm pulling up his stats right now, but like I was looking at like some of his passes, and it's like, sure, I mean, like he had technically a more successful game. He obviously won the game, which was pretty good for them. Okay, and you can load. Okay, it loaded for. Anyways, I'm gonna ignore that. But anyways, like I was seeing some of the plays at least, and like Bijan, I feel like he was still making like crazy catches. He's like, he has like this weekly bizarre catch that he makes, and I'm like, I mean, sure, it's
one-handed behind the back like touchdown. That was insane,
right? I'm like, they're cool stats. I mean, they're cool plays to look at, but I'm like, like you got to do better. It's like 2 feet in front of you, bro. Like throw it better. But I mean, like good on Ridder for having a technically better game. Yeah, but even with a good game from him, it's like they put up 21 points. Like, is this like the Falcons ceiling? Is kind of like what goes off in my head right now. Where I'm like, is like if Desmond Ridder's like, you might have our guy type game leads your offense to a 21-point game against a team like the Texans. The Texans, they're playing fine, but Texans are not a premier team in the NFL, and the fact that this is like, oh yeah, Desmond Ridder is him, I think we got to see more. I think from Ridder, because even like what Mike White has had good games, but like we're not calling him a savior, but. So it all comes down to
Jets fans were, but I get your point. His ball placement definitely needs to be a lot better. It was pretty horrendous still in some situations. They made it an active point to finally get Kyle Pitts involved, which is like definitely what you want to see. It was kind of a weird game for me because I didn't realize like how much the Texans would miss Tank Dell when he went out with injury. It actually had a huge impact on their team, and like, good on CJ Stroud for leading the game-winning drive before the Falcons went back and just kicked the game-winning field goal there. But that was tough, like seeing the Texans kick 4 field goals and be like, oh, what happened to their offense? Like over the course of like the past like 3 to 5 weeks. So I think the Texans are down for a rebound. But definitely interesting to see. I would not give up on Dameon Pierce if I have him. I think he'll get a shine soon. They're trying to figure out a balance with him. All right. Talk to me about the Eagles and Rams. I'm going to turn on the lights. I don't look like a zombie, but I will still be here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Eagles, Rams. Obviously, the big storyline here was Cooper Kupp coming back and seeing how that would affect Puka Nakua's overall production. And we saw that, he is completely fine in this offense. And I think they'll have they're going to be having an elite, 1-2 receiver duo for however long Cooper Kupp keeps on playing his game. And I think that I wouldn't call it like the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like part of that playoff push team where they're like, fighting for a spot into the playoffs, wild card kind of position later in the season. But I mean, obviously, seeing against the Eagles here.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Totally forgot to change the banner there.
Yeah, no, yeah. The Eagles obviously are an elite team. For some reason, they're always super low in power rankings. Like I think I saw one that had them at like 8 or something. It was kind of crazy. The Cowboys are still higher than them. But I'm like, okay, shut up, super power rankings. Anyways, yeah, but like them losing to the Eagles isn't really a surprise. But I do think that the Rams are going to be competitive in a lot of games this year, especially now that Cooper Kupp's back. And as the season progresses, I think that, just their offense will really blossom. Hopefully Kyron Williams plays better. I don't think he's really that great. I think he's a product of just being the sole guy and Sean McVay liking Kyron. And so I wouldn't be surprised again, like if like one of the guys behind him does surpass him, or if next season, they do go make a play for a running back in the draft, just at a higher draft position. But it's that, and then the Eagles, obviously, I think Devontae Smith had a smaller game, but when someone has a small game in the Eagles, someone else has a huge game, and so we saw a couple other players ball out, and I think that's just what makes the Eagles so deadly is the fact that it's whoever gets into the zone with that offense can just completely wreck the game for the other team, and we see this basically week in and week out for the Eagles, which is annoying kind of for fantasy because I don't know when my guy will go off, but it's good for Eagles fans.
Yeah, a lot of great points there. I'll just add another one. That draft pick, Jalen Carter out of Georgia, he looks phenomenal on that team. Like just the ease which he beats his one-on-ones is just insane. And I was just like, it's almost like he's watching tape and like of Aaron Donald and applying it in real time, like on the very next possession. And it was just like absolutely amazing to watch. On like the Rams offense, I'm in agreement with you. I actually will go higher on them. I'll say I think you can lock them in for a wild card team if Stafford stays healthy. They have the offense to keep up with anybody, but I think their defense is so young and needs more consistency in order to actually like pull together a string of stops to give the offense a chance to win. But I think Puka showed a lot of great things. There was one route on the touchdown on Bradbury where like he won with technical refinement. And I was just like, wow, that's how you know he's here to stay. I don't think Puka's going anywhere, even with Kupp back. I think he could easily have like 5 or 6 receptions a game, maybe a touchdown and like 60 to 70 yards. And that's still really good, like for what you grabbed him off the waiver wire for. I'm sure nobody had drafted Puka Nacua in fantasy. Kupp looked like himself. I thought he was going to have 20 receptions. I've had him in one of my leagues, and like he had 5 receptions on the first drive. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like the steal I've had. Second round Cooper Kupp, and it's still a bargain. But he looked amazing out there. And AJ Brown looked like a monster. There's like one catch like over the middle where he just one-handed it, and like nobody tackled him for like 30 yards. And I was just like, what do you do against him? Like, how do you offend this dude? Because you can't press him because he's a physical freak, and you can't play off of him because he knows how to play the zones. And like Jalen Hurts is good at reading zone coverages now, and somebody else will pop open. And you can't put a safety over the top because like he's just gonna moss the cornerback and like beat the safety. Like so, like how do you defend this dude? So that's like the one guy where it's just like I don't have an answer on like how to stop him. I don't think teams do. And it was good to see them use Goddard early.
Yeah. I think both teams are going to be pretty strong, especially later in the season. It'll be fun to watch.
Yep, sure thing. What was not fun to watch was the 49ers absolutely destroying the Cowboys. A lot of people were really hyped about this game, and it did not turn out well for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. But like I mentioned earlier, I don't think it was Dak's fault. I think the 49ers are just like they're out to seek vengeance on the Eagles for what happened in the NFC Championship game. Talk to me about what you saw from this game, Coach Hackett.
Yeah. Well, I think this game is like a perfect example of why Dak Prescott is in the hot seat. Not saying that Dak Prescott's like even a bottom 16 quarterback by any means. I think just like Dak Prescott really can't, I guess, he won't be he's like one of those quarterbacks that fall into the category of they're not going to be the reason why you win games. And so I mean we see that here with the 49ers where sure like Dak Prescott he more often than not will have good games throughout each season, but like when it comes down to like difficult and strong opponents to go against, I think that it takes a lot for him to stay competitive in these games. And like I mean you look at the Cowboys offense, it is star-studded, and like it just seems like things aren't clicking as like well as you'd like them to, but I still think that regardless, just the fact that they can beat like bad teams more often than not, and the defense just having a lot of good playmakers regardless of getting like sauced up by the 49ers right here. I think that, they are a team that can pretty easily make the wild card just in terms of when they should win, they can win. But then they just struggle against tough teams, which leads me to think that they won't make a very deep playoff run.
Yeah. I think the 49ers are just better. I just think they're better. I don't think it's like the Cowboys can't like make the playoffs. I definitely think they can have that 5 or 6 seed. But like when I compare them to the Eagles and the 49ers, I'm just like they don't look anywhere close to these teams right now. And sure, like a 40-point blowout against the Giants looks good. Like and like beating the Jets by so much looks good. But it doesn't matter how badly you beat an opponent per se if they're not on the same level as you. And I think this is a perfect example where like we had just like looked at the 49ers and the Cowboys before the series saying, oh wow, only one win separates them. One of them is undefeated. This is going to be a really good game. They both have really good defenses. Their offenses look much better. This is going to be a tight game. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw like Brock Purdy absolutely dicing up the Cowboys defense. Like, and I get it. They lost Trayvon Diggs, but like this was just insanity. Like, yes, Kyle Shanahan is like a magician with play calling. Like, he certainly had a role with that, where he kept like the Dallas defensive line off guard. But like Brock Purdy's anticipations on some throws and like throwing them before receivers are out of their break is just like otherworldly. There's just one touchdown to like George Kittle. It's not like the rollout leaf flicker that a lot of people saw on the sideline that Laporta got and then George Kittle got. This one was more George Kittle ran a post, and George Kittle just like slurred tight, like slightly to the left, like as he was taking an out route, and Brock Purdy threw it to him at that moment. But like by the time the ball got to George Kittle, he was like in the middle of the field, like running the rest of the post route, and I'm like, he didn't even get out of this break, and the ball was already on him. And you saw that multiple times with Brock Purdy. if you guys get a chance to watch it, I would watch the QB school analysis on Brock Purdy. Great channel, great analysis on that. That was something special. I think Brock Purdy doesn't get talked about like as one of the best QBs in this league already. Like just the way he plays and the way he maximizes and elevates the people around him. That's what you need your quarterback to do. And I think that's what people are looking for when they say the quarterback can't just lose the game. Like it's not that he can't lose the game. It's more like how does he maximize his talent, elevate the people around him? That's more important in my opinion. Christian McCaffrey betters. I would bet next week that he scores a touchdown next week. It's pretty much a given. Like any week Christian McCaffrey plays, he's going to score a touchdown. You didn't hear it from me. Don't blame me if he doesn't. Just putting it out there. Every single week he's played, he scored a touchdown. So the bill is not coming due anytime soon. All right. A less exciting game, but still pretty interesting to watch was the Packers and Raiders. Max Crosby looked like an absolute beast. Packers looked like they were missing Aaron Jones a ton. A.J. Dillon looked a lot better. I think Matt LaFleur called some plays that were better suited to Dillon. It was a lot more single back, where like Dillon gets a running start into the plays. But yeah, of course, anything else you noticed from this game that you thought you might mention?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Packers offense had a lot more to be desired. I mean, like, I think with Jordan Love's hot start, I think everybody expected him to be, the next big thing quarterback. But I think people also have to remember that despite sitting for quite a while, it's also been a while since like he's been the guy, at the quarterback position for a football team. Kind of similar to Trey Lance. Not comparing the two necessarily. I think they're pretty different players, but I just think like even if Jordan Love maybe doesn't have the season that you'd hope for him to have, I think the Packers run at least one more season with him, if possible. To kind of play out how things are with him. But I do think that, Packers offense, like at times they seem to be doing a really great job at targeting their guys. But at other times, like against the Raiders here, right? Like it seems like they couldn't get the ball to the playmakers' hands like enough at all. I know like Christian Watson, he's still on his like little snap count with coming back from his injury, but I think like Romeo Dubs, like I don't. Did he have a catch? Like I think he maybe had like one or two catches, but
I remember he had one or two. It wasn't like a blow up game by any means.
Yeah, and it was like really small, and I'm like, well, like while Christian Watson's coming back, like Dubs has been your guy, and then like Musgrave, dealing with his things or whatever, but like I don't know, it just seemed like they couldn't get like anything going on offense, which ultimately led to their demise. But I do think that they do have a really nice core of playmakers around them. Like I said, I like Luke Musgrave. He reminds me a lot of Zach Ertz, in terms of they're good at getting open. They're great route runners. They have good hands, but they suck after the catch, where literally you can touch them and they fall. But Zach Ertz made a career out of it. Maybe Musgrave is just another Zach Ertz for the next decade for the Packers.
6 catches for 34 yards.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think Musgrave's going to be a solid like chain mover, and then you're hoping that your three young guys can develop, even if one of them only is like turns out to be like a really nice player, and then the other two are just kind of jags. Then I think the Packers offense is fine, and you just replace those two guys. But that said, on the Raiders side, Jacoby Myers is playing phenomenally. For my fantasy team, he's literally the best guy on there, which kind of sucks for me because I have guys like CeeDee Lamb, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, and whatnot. And Jacoby Myers, my like super late round pick, ends up becoming my de facto kind of guy, which it's lame to me, but I'm glad I have him, I guess. But he's playing really good. Adams is Adams. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about Adams. I think he'll have a better game next week. Like he's one of those players like don't panic sell him. Jacoby Myers, he's proving me wrong. He looks like a great wide receiver too, and they're using him like really well in the scheme. I was not high. I was not confident like on how they would use him, and he looks great out there. I just think like there's certain plays where it's just like what happened to Josh Jacobs, like on how like he used to be dominant last year, and I don't think they're calling the same types of plays that he had success with. Like they're all like completely different. Whereas like is some of them are like single back, like yeah, he thrive on that, but like they don't have a fullback in on some of those running plays, and I'm just like that's kind of important for like the type of runner that Josh Jacobs is. Um, I love to see them getting the tight ends involved early, but like keep it more consistent. I'm not as high on Mayer as I was in the other draft class tight ends, but like he's still talented. Like Cooper can still do some things. Like it's gonna help like free up Devontae Adams, and then like please give Hunter Renfro the ball. Like what happened to him? Like it's not like you just like he got like one catch yesterday too, and I'm just like
Yeah.
he like I like just trade him to the Patriots already. That's what I'm at
Yeah.
with.
Well, I mean, like Hunter Renfro's play style really doesn't match Josh McDaniels' like offensive play call style, which obviously has led to his demise at least as of now. I don't know why they haven't traded him, especially with the his he definitely had a lot higher value in the offseason, and if you're not planning on using him in your scheme, I do think that was kind of silly for them not to move on for him. But he's like, I know Josh McDaniels, his like system is very rigid route running, which obviously guys like Myers and Devontae Adams can succeed pretty easily in. But Hunter Renfro, I think it's like with Gruden, I think his like whole strategy was the fact that he isn't as physically gifted as a lot of other players in the secondary or other wide receivers, and so uh, I think you've probably talked about this too, but where his strength comes from kind of that free form route running that he just kind of gets open into a direction basically.
Two-way
And
goes. He's a specialty. Like he and Cooper Kupp are probably the best at running two-way goes. I think Kupp's in the elite tier on his own, but like Renfro is really good at those.
yeah, and I mean I think the difference as well between Kupp and Renfro is just the fact that Kupp, he just across the board, I think he's an elite route runner where you can put him in like a lot of offensive systems and he can run like whatever routes you need him to run exceptionally well. Whereas Renfro is really dependent on like it just kind of telling him get open is kind of his thing, and so it's like he has his like really he has basically a pretty small route tree that you have to have like schemed for him in order for him to really take advantage of his playmaking ability, which I don't think falls under Josh McDaniels' playbook.
Yeah. Long story short, I don't think it's a great fit as well. Yeah, I was like kind of disappointed in Jordan Love because like it's kind of like you see the growth happen in the first 3 weeks, and then you see this week where it doesn't even look at the linebacker on the read. What's it called? Not read option, RPO. He doesn't even watch the linebacker like directly under the influence of the RPO, and he throws it right to it. I'm just like, what is going on? I don't blame the last interception on him. Um, you could say Watson could have come back to the ball a little bit, and that's just a little bit of an experience. But that's just a great play by the cornerback. Like so, not much like Jordan Love can do there. But like other than that, I think he still needs some work, like processing the field. Like he's still not polished yet, and it's going to take some time. Alrighty. I did have Ravens and Steelers here. I didn't watch it. I don't even know if that's correct. Did you see it, Coach?
I did see it.
Okay. You
But
put it
like,
there without telling me, man.
I
Good.
did
What
put
did you
it
see?
there. Like I think the craziest thing here was the amount of dropped passes by the Ravens wide receiver room, where like I think he had like 8 drops that like if were caught like would have resulted in like an almost 200 receiving yards and like 3 extra touchdowns or something along those lines. And I'm like, boy, does that suck. Like because you look at the stats and you're like, dang, Lamar didn't have a great game, but like this is like a historically bad outing for the Ravens. Just receiver room. Even like I know Mark Andrews is dropping things. Nelson Aguilar, he had a good catch and then he had a couple drops. Zay Flowers tripped over himself on like a wide open a deep throw. And I mean, like with Zay Flowers, I think he's still young, so it's like, oh, fix those, I guess. But with the other guys, it's like, come on, like you've been in the league for a minute, you should know what you're doing here. On the Steelers side, I mean, even though they won, they looked pretty awful. I don't know if you saw this, but did you see all the Matt Canada like memes? That were
I'd
happening.
seen enough to know, and I've watched enough of their offense. Having Najee doesn't help, but like their offense is like
Mhm.
terrible. It's
Well,
like
no, like the
throw the
one
pick and
persist, yeah, yeah. Well,
what's
because
the
like the
one
meme,
meme you
right?
saw?
Well, it wasn't necessarily a meme, but it was like they showed like the booth or whatever on like the game-winning play for the Steelers, and they showed
Oh,
like
right,
right
right.
where like Kenny Pickett like he calls some type of audible or calls some look or whatever, and like he throws for like George Pickens I think for that touchdown to win the game for the Steelers, and then everybody in like the Steelers booth is like cheering and celebrating and everything, and then you just see him just like staring like almost like he was angry, and everyone was joking about how like,
Why didn't you
uh,
call that play?
it's like why did you call my -2 yard run to a Najee Harris straight up the middle when I'm in I formation, and it's just everyone's just kind of dogging on him for that, and like I saw that and I'm like, bro, no way. And someone like I saw some comment was like, no, he was focusing because they knew he had to call a 2-point conversion the next play, yada yada yada. And someone else commented below like, dang, I didn't know Matt Canada had another alt account, to help defend him. But I just thought it was funny with just how awful Matt Canada is at being an
Yeah.
offensive coordinator, and like I don't know, he's obviously I don't know the whole story. I mean, to the extent of him being a bad offensive coordinator, I do understand, but outside of that, I'm like, hopefully something changes with him. But
All I have to look at is like how Najee Harris is doing.
hmm
Like he's arguably your best player on that offense,
hmm
and he's had a horrible season.
hmm
And it's not his fault. I can legitimately say it's not his fault. He's not being put in positions to succeed. He's not
hmm
being put in like down in distances that allow him to get like runs more than like
hmm
-2 yards. What do you expect him to do? Like, you got to like start simple. Start simple. Everybody in the league is doing this. They're getting aggressive
hmm
on first down to their best player, so that way they don't have to worry about teams doubling them on third down.
hmm
They're doubling the best player on third down, and then
hmm
they check to the runs and third downs to make it easier. Like
hmm
everybody runs on second down to get the down and distance. Like even if you run it on first down, you get -2 yards. Still run the ball. Still run the
hmm
ball. And then the types of runs you do, you can't run like halfback dive every other play. This isn't Madden.
hmm
You gotta vary it. And I just think there's no progression to this play calls. There's no like situations where you're putting defenders in conflict in this play calls. And it's a lot of like you're putting a lot of pressure on your QB that way to make the right throw and receivers to win like man to man the entire time against like changing zone
hmm
defenses. And that's just very difficult. Like you're asking a lot out of your players and
hmm
like you're not like elevating the scheme to help people.
hmm Yeah, but like I was thinking like talking about Najee, but I'm like, there's a handful of teams around the league that I think he would like really excel in, and so like obviously it isn't a Najee issue. I think teams like the Ravens, uh, Browns, Lions, um,
Oh
or
my
just
god.
like
Imagine Najee on the Lions, dude.
right, like
With
that would
all
be
the
great.
production David Montgomery and like
hmm
Gibbs are getting, dude, he would be a monster.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking like what other teams like I mean like with the James Conner injury, I think that Najee could play decently better than he is at least right now on the Cardinals. And the
Yeah.
Cardinals were like we talked about them as one of the worst teams in the league. Um, and so it's like something's got to change.
He
I
would look great in Houston.
hmm He would look great in a lot of teams, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough situation. Like I think Najee's gonna ride on my bench permanently. I'm not dropping
hmm
him because there's a chance that Canada could be fired or there's gonna be a change in the scheme.
Yeah.
But like he and Stevenson are probably like the weirdest cases this season.
hmm
Like I'm like, what's just happened to them? So yeah. You hope Kenny Pickett keeps obbling to runs and passes to his best players. So we'll just hope for that every other play, and Steelers' offense will look good.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, you got Broncos and Chiefs Thursday night. I'm sure you're going to be paying attention to that game.
Yeah, maybe.
We know you
Maybe
got
I'll
the
just
Broncos.
be crying, but.
Okay, never mind. He doesn't have the Broncos.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Chiefs on this one.
Yeah. I'm
Although,
actually
like, they're still trying to
watching
figure out.
Taylor Swift. I'm gonna be watching the Taylor Swift game actually, not the I don't know who these Broncos or Chiefs are. I all I know is that Taylor Swift's gonna be on the TV, and so
Right. The
I'm just gonna
Broncos,
be
they're from
watching for
Denver,
her.
right? They're
I'm
from
not
Denver.
sure.
Can you explain what a down is, please?
When I think it's the lyric in one of Taylor Swift's songs. She throws it down. I don't know, but like just one last thing, just about the Taylor Swift funnies or whatever was this one guy. He's this YouTube guy. He's a Packers fan. Sure, you've seen him. Uh, but he on one of his streams, he does like a talks over the games or whatever, and he counted between the Jets and the Chiefs game how many times they like panned to Aaron Rodgers and how many times the camera panned to Taylor Swift, and it had gone to Taylor Swift more times than Aaron Rodgers during the Chiefs Jets game, and I'm like, no way, like, but yeah.
And especially during the Zach Wilson coming out party. That was insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not going to show Aaron Rodgers like that much.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. But yeah, I got the Chiefs. I guess I'm on Team Swifties for this week. I I think the wide receivers still need some work. Kadarius Toney got a lot of targets. He's getting a lot of opportunities. We'll see if he makes the most of them. But it's literally Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco and Patrick Mahomes, and that's their offense. And then their defense looks really good. Until I see Denver hold a team to 20 points or lower, I'm not confident in them stopping the soul. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean it happened week 1.
Yeah, but I'm saying like going forward.
Yeah, I'm joking, but like yeah.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to see from the Broncos in this game?
Turnovers on the offense.
You're looking forward
Blown
to see
calls on the defense.
Corsian
But
said tank for Caleb's moment.
yeah, except Caleb said that he honestly he's gonna make more money in college next year than he would have on a rookie contract. And so there's a good chance of him staying his like next season too. And I'm like, don't blame him, but like that would kind of shake up the draft. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, a lot of good
Tank for
quarterback
Drake
options.
May.
Yeah, I mean Drake May looking kind of nice too. Obviously, Caleb's the one to the generation, but can't force him to play anyway if he doesn't want to. On that note, that's us. That's the entertaining group we are. You can follow us at Amon.aid.mission. I don't know why I said periods there. I'm just feeling different today. You can stay up to date with our latest news. The Drew Holiday short will be up in something. It'll happen eventually, I promise. But if not, take it easy. Hope to follow us. And if you have any questions or comments, you can always drop them either in our Instagram post, direct message us on the YouTube comments. You can roast us on how the Broncos and Bears are doing. You can offer us feedback on how we can do better. But take it easy.